Hello, and welcome to another episode of Myths and Stories, a Destiny 2 lore podcast. It's a new year, new stuff. Yay! I'm so excited. Last year, when we started our new year, we did the entire Braytech series and went nuts with Clovis Bray, which felt really, really fun. We were thinking of doing something similar to that this year, but we're gonna do kind of a big series. We're going to start going through. So from now until Final Shape, we're going to kind of go through like the big hitters, like who to watch out for in Final Shape, or at least the road to Final Shape, right? Because the big deal with Destiny right now is of course it's been pushed back. The Final Shape's been pushed back. It was supposed to come out here in about 7 weeks. Now we've got about 22 weeks.
Yeah.
So all of us Destiny content creators are kind of I don't know. Myth, do you feel like we're in kind of a scramble?
The people that rely on this to make a living,
They're
definitely.
probably in a scramble.
We
Myth and I
we
do this for
are,
fun, so we're kind of in
yeah,
this neat little bubble that we're just like, okay, we'll just keep doing it. It's fine. So yeah, like it's we're in a weird spot right now, but again, we're gonna keep going with this. Obviously, we know that you guys love it, and I know that Myth and I have a very unique format by having the two of us, and being able to bounce kind of ideas and stuff off each other, and then just sticking to the lore. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna stick to the lore, and we're gonna start off this year with a kind of a Savathun series. Uh, and we're gonna start off that series with Truth to Power.
yeah. Um, so yeah, this is going to be a little different than some of our previous like history of Braytech because the bulk of Savathun's origins have already been discussed in our Books of Sorrow
As well as
series,
Endgame.
as well as in game. During the Witch Queen campaign, they hit on kind of where Savathun came from and whatnot. Um, so we're not going to start over again at the very beginning on Fundament as like Sathona. Um, but we'll do kind of a brief overview. And then Truth to Power is kind of a really interesting lore book to try and dissect, especially now after the fact and knowing what we do, and bringing that knowledge to some of the things presented in Truth to Power. And also Truth to Power was one of the first instances of Savathun interfacing with our character in a direct manner. Um, like we up to that point had dealt with the ramifications of things she was doing, but she had never really like sent us a message before, until Truth to Power.
Which I've kind of an interesting theory on why that is, but we'll get into that as we dive into these books.
Yeah. Um, So to give a very blanket overview of Savathun, if you somehow are not familiar with her at this point,
We're
uh,
not dealing with an entire season right now where like she granted like she wished a wish and that was the 15th wish and the thing that everyone's
right?
been searching for 6 years or anything like that. No. Nobody has a clue who
Yeah, no.
Savathun is.
So to very briefly summarize, she was originally one of the three uh, proto hive sisters. They were called the Krill at that time. You had Aurochs, Shiro, and Sathona, which became Oryx, Shiva Arath, and Savathun by making a deal with the worm gods to be granted immortal life in exchange for immortal hunger, essentially. Um, and that that kind of deal with the devil ended up becoming a main motivational force for Savathun, especially because she became the hive god or goddess of trickery. This meant that she feeds or fed, I should say, off of a energy that they call in game Imbaru. Similar to how a Ahamkara feeds off the difference between reality as desired and reality as is. Uh, Savathun fed off this Imbaru, which I would describe as the difference between truth as understood by a person and truth as it is in reality. Um, she intentionally, being the hive god of trickery, she would intentionally give. I don't even know if I would say she's given false information, but she's given information that is always up for interpretation and is always like debatable and is confusing because I wouldn't say she necessarily feeds off of lies. I think she feeds off of misunderstanding or
I think,
ignorance of the truth.
yeah, I think that's more accurate. So, like, she'll speak in riddles that can be interpreted any way you want, and
Mm-hmm.
just that confusion there is what's that's what she's feeding off of. That deception, the trickery, the confusion, the like. uh, Again, not necessarily misinformation, because there's been some times where we're like, dude, what is she telling us? Like, there's no way this has got to be a lie, and she's telling the truth the entire time. But
Yeah.
like, just the thought of that, this might not be the truth, that is what she's feeding off of.
Yes. Or our interpretation of, okay, this is what she means by that riddle, and the fact that we have interpreted it differently than what the actual meaning is, that gives her energy during the
Yep.
time that she has her worm. Um, so a large portion of what we go over, definitely in this episode and probably the next couple episodes, are going to be things that were generated during the time where she was still beholden to her worm. She was still beholden to have to present information in that way, or else she would literally starve to death. Uh, and that power dynamic has been a driving force with her, even all the way back in the Books of Sorrow. You can kind of see she reaches a point where she's like, I don't like the deal we made. I need to figure out a way out of this.
Maybe immortality at a cost is not really immortality.
Yeah.
Was it Riven says it really good too. Protection in a cage is still a cage. Like, you're still
Yeah.
you're still beholden to something. Like, yeah.
So she pretty much ever since then has been trying multiple different ways to circumvent the rules of her worm, and then eventually get rid of it altogether, which is what we saw in Season of the Lost with Mara kind of agreeing to exorcise the worm out of her in exchange for giving Osiris back. Um, so she's had a couple things she's tried. We know that she tried to like create a infinite loop battery with a black hole and a thrall. Um, but the more she fed her worm, just it it grew exponentially in hunger as
Kind of like
she
backfired,
gave
didn't it?
it food exponentially. Yeah. Uh, so that didn't
Exponential.
work.
You're telling me that exponential growth is unsustainable?
Uh,
Maybe
so
there's
there's
some high level companies that may need to take that to heart with making money.
maybe so, maybe. But no, so she tried a number of things, many of which were unsuccessful until landing on the events that we saw happen in Season of the Lost and whatnot. But one of, and I still don't know that's 100% clear what her all of her goals were. But one of those things, either a failed plan or a step of another plan that has yet to fully reveal itself, was making a deal with Riven to take the Dreaming City, to curse the Dreaming City with its time loop. Um, and while we, the Guardian, during Forsaken, are attempting to try and find more information about this time loop, and see what we can do to prevent it. Every third week during Forsaken, you were able to visit the Oracle Engine and Mara's throne room in the Dreaming City, which, for those that are playing the most recent season, this last main story beat brought us back to that same throne room. You may have seen a treasure chest sitting next to the throne. Uh, that treasure chest, I think, still is um, openable every third week of the curse, like the strongest
Yep.
curse week.
As long as you get
Uh,
the bounty from Petra first. Don't go do the
yeah,
don't get the oracle thing from the weekly mission. Walking there and stare at the chest and go, "Why can't I open this? This is bullshit."
yeah. Um, but when we opened that chest, it not only gave you some gear, it gave you a page of this lore book called Truth to Power. Now we know, I don't think there's any way to like hide it or pretend we don't. We know Truth to Power was written by Savathun.
Mm-hmm.
I At least in part. There are some areas that we'll discuss as we go through that we're like, is it though? Um,
Maybe.
but we know that she had a hand in it, which that alone implies so many things. The fact that she was able to plant these pages in Mara's literal throne room when Mara was present, at least some of the time, uh, is this like begs the question of how, like,
Yeah.
how did Mara not know about it? Like, is Savathun just that powerful at this time that she can just like plop things into the Dreaming City, into a hidden corner of the Dreaming City's like pocket space, and leave us messages? Like the fact that it's there at all is wild.
Right.
Um, and during the time that this was originally discovered, people and still debate over what is here, and like poured over the entries trying to figure out what is actually going on in this book, because by nature of Savathun, it is very confusing. It makes a lot of jumps between narrators, and it will straight up tell you like, hey, ignore that thing on the last page, or it was, or oh, that was someone else and now I'm a different author. Like there's a lot going on. So keep that in mind as we go through this. Is it's intended to be confusing, but we're going to try and dissect as much of it as we can, because this is kind of where our path and Savathun's path crossed directly for the first time. So we're going to start with the first chapter of the lore book Truth to Power, titled Is It You? And this one goes like this. I'm so glad you're the one who found me. I've foreseen so many horrors with these stolen eyes, but now, when for once I ache to know the future, I cannot be sure of even a simple hope. Are you the one reading this message? I think it must be you. Who else would look for me? Ikora trusts her hidden to return when they are needed, and Cade would roll himself down Angel Falls in a barrel before he'd admit that he missed me. Zavala does not place me first on his long list of worries. You are the only one who would go out and look for me. I never needed you to save me. I wasn't a dried corpse or a dead ghost or a voice on the calm sure to die before you could offer help. I hauled myself out of that pit. I made my own way back to the tower, And if I was unsubtle in the way I threw you against the hive, if I seemed to wield you as vengeance, please believe that your victories were the closest I could come to feeling joy. I know you must have questions. What did I plan with the Queen? What destiny did I embrace after Oryx fell? What's happening in this city where dream has become nightmare? I can guide you to undo this curse, as I once guided you to unmake Oryx. But in the dreaming city, as in with secret worlds of the hive, there is almost no difference between the act and the actor. In order to understand my answers, you must understand me. I lost my ghost and my light to the hive. I conspired with the queen of the awoken to destroy the hive king Oryx and his son Crota, and to position Queen Mara as player on the cosmic board. I fled your tower to prepare for the struggle to come, into the sea of screams which calls to all those who plumb the depths of hive magic. I can only slip these letters into the Queen's gifts when the stars are right. You will have to wait for my next, and with it, the beginning of the truth. But I swear to you, on whatever trust I've earned in your mind, that at the end of my story, you will know who I truly am. In my first life, I was born Arisa Pietova Hisin. I remember that private life clearly now, as ex-guardians who have escaped the traveler's occlusion often do. I lived in St. Petersburg, first daughter of a second marriage, a very impatient child of Earth's 22nd century, often abandoned by my family, who were called to work to Jakarta, Kamchatka, and Lagos, to pass my days swimming in the icy Neva Bay. I loved to swim, and especially I loved the clarity of the cold, shallow Neva, as crystal clean as a winter dawn. Enormous Zubar 9 hovercraft barges roved the waters. Russia had modernized its waterways better than its sad auto industry. As a kid, is it strange to hear me speak casually? As a child, I never swam too far from my parents' little drone helper, Fyodor. The swift hovercraft terrified me, their billowing skirts waiting to suck me up and dice me into little raisins. But I grew up and fell in love with a reckless crowd, rebels against the stifling death fear that came with our golden age lifespans. Soon, the child's safety harness and Fyodor's careful oversight began to itch at me. When I was 17, I went out in a wetsuit on a dare to dive under the skirts of the oncoming hover barge. Maybe I was in no danger. Maybe the machine would have changed course if it could possibly hurt me. But I thought I might die, and I did it anyway. And as that beast swept over me, as I trembled under the blast of the propellers, I felt a thing which was very much like what I would one day know as the light. Maybe that thing was heroism. Maybe it was existence on the edge of death. It was the first time I survived the passage of tremendous godlike power. I died more than 20 years later, attempting an unassisted winter swim from St. Petersburg to Stockholm. A cold front like the very furnace of hell caught me. I had been warned the crossing was suicide, even for a perfectly trained and exactingly fattened woman in a shark suit. But those were giddy days, days of infinite bravery, and there were no mighty feats left except the truly suicidal. I cannot regret it. I think that death prepared me for the longer, darker, more exquisitely cruel crossing I would one day endure. It is no accident that my ghost made me in the image of that swimming woman, rather than any of my younger and less grimly determined selves. And that's the end of that chapter.
So again, we have to remember that this is like we know now this is from Savathun. At the
Yes,
time, this seemed like it was from Eris. Like this seemed
very
like it
much
was
so.
Eris Morn telling everyone about her past, about her pre-Guardian days, which of course is forbidden knowledge by order of the Vanguard and Zavala and all that stuff. Um, but again, we don't know how much of that is true.
Right.
it's,
So
it's,
let's yeah, we can kind of go down some of the things that are said here and talk about them a little bit. So um I'm so glad you're the one that found me. I feel like that is probably an actual statement from Savathun.
yeah, yep.
Uh like she wanted the Guardian,
The
you know.
specifically VIP 2014.
Yeah, she wanted them to be the one to kind of fall into this web a little bit. Uh
Because otherwise, everyone else would just write this off as like dribble. Like I think
right,
if the
yeah.
Queen had found this, or like if Eris had found this, it would have been like, I didn't write that. Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. Yeah. Also important to note that Eris is not present in the game as an NPC at the time this comes out.
Oh, that's
Uh,
right.
she we hadn't seen her since the end of
Taken King.
Taken Kit. Yeah. Um, like she is an NPC, disappeared from the tower. Definitely through all of D2. I think through the end
We
of
don't.
D1 she was gone.
Yeah, we don't see her until
Shadowkeep, I think.
Shadowkeep. Yeah, that's when she makes her resurgence.
So
Holy shit! Yeah, that's kind of a mind fuck.
yeah, that's kind of the whole that if at the time people are like, "Oh, this is Eris," and this was the first they had heard from her in a very long
Right.
time. Um, but I do think, yeah, Savathun wanted us to be the one to find it because we're the ones that are gonna do what we as the players do and like dissect this for
Dissect,
all the info we
read,
can.
do all this stuff.
I I've foreseen so many horrors with these stolen eyes. That could almost be a truth.
Right.
Um, Savathun, didn't literally steal eyes in the way Eris did, but she may consider her current body as, you know, something that is stolen power, is something that was uh changed with the power of the worm. Um but now, when for once I ache to know the future, I cannot be sure of a simple hope. Again, like Savathun, for all her plans and schemes and contingencies, she has to make a million contingencies for every possible outcome she can think of because she doesn't know where
is
this is
she
all going
is
to end up.
is she the world's best DM?
Just
She just
plan for
come
everything. Yeah.
and just wait for the player to ask the wrong question and be like, "Well, shit. I guess we'll come up with this on the fly now."
Yep. Yep. So yeah, I think again she wishes she did know how all this was going to play out in the future, but she doesn't. Um she goes on about like Ikora has her hidden that always come back to her. Cade would never miss her being Eris, which I think is false.
That's a complete
Uh
falsity.
yeah.
Cade literally like in the which strike is it? The old arms dealer. Some of the old dialogue from before
Yeah.
they remade it, Cade was literally like, "Oh, I miss Eris," and it's like
Yeah.
that was a Red War thing. So that was like vanilla D2, and then for this to come back and say, "Well, Cade would never miss me," it's like, dude, Cade loved Eris. Like the whole interaction during Taken King with "Get your rock off my table," and then like, "I'm not flying that ship. Like somebody else can fly that. That's Eris's ship." Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think this is um not I won't say lies. I don't think the intention is just to lie to us. I think the intention is to try and drive
a
a make
question.
the a make the Eris character being presented in this more sympathetic to the
Sure.
reader. Like, oh, she's all on her own kind of thing. And B, like drive a little bit of division between the
Right.
player and the Vanguard. Be like, Ikora has her hidden, they're spying on people. Cade wouldn't care about me. Zavala has this long list of stuff, and I'm nowhere near, anywhere near the top of it.
Right.
Like, almost kind of accentuating some of the more flawed aspects of those characters.
Sure.
Uh, and then saying like you're the only one who would go out and look for me. Again, kind of giving that like sympathetic, like feel bad for me. And I appreciate you for doing something good. Feel bad for me. Trust what I'm saying. All of that kind of
Right.
stuff. Um, she goes on again just to try and convince us like I never needed you to save me. I climbed my way out of the pit and back to the tower. Uh, which that could be a truth from Savathun. We don't know how long she's had access to the tower prior to uh body napping Osiris.
Right.
Like she could have been there before then in different ways. Um she says, I can guide you to undo this curse as I once guided you to unmake Oryx. That might also be a truth from Savathun.
Jesus Christ.
I know that the Eris is kind of the one that put us on the path, of like, okay, this is, land on the dreadnought and talking about the ascendant plane and all that. Um, we know Savathun has loved her family, but has never had any qualms about removing them from the playing field if they're going to get in the way of what her ultimate goal is.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if we discovered at some point that like Savathun is the reason Eris knew the info to tell us to how to deal with Oryx. Uh
Oh, like she was the one that actually like fed that info to her or shared it with her or whatever.
in some way, yeah.
Sure.
Um now that I can guide you to undo this curse, being the Dreaming City's curse, I mean I won't say she is doing that right now, because
Right.
she did literally give us Wish 15 in a very roundabout way. Um, but 15 isn't to undo the Dreaming City curse. And actually, this season, Riven has even said, like, there is no undoing it.
Yeah. That thing is stuck. It sucks to suck.
Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting one. Um, say in order to understand my answers, you must understand me. I think again that's just a blatant like you need to go back and do what we're doing. Read through this knowing the context, knowing the author in order
Yep.
to understand what the actual messages might be. Uh and then she gives us some information about Eris as far as like she lost her ghost. She conspired with the Queen of the Awoken to destroy Oryx. Uh Now, this is interesting. I fled your tower to prepare for the struggle to come into the sea of screams, which calls to all those who plumb the depths of hive magic. Uh, this
I
could
think
be
that's more
true.
Savathun.
This could be true of either of them, I
Oh,
guess.
sure.
Um, like
But I don't know
Eris,
that Eris
Eris
would
left the tower.
specifically. Well, so I think it's a two-part, right? Like I think the I fled your tower to prepare for the struggle to come. I think that
Yeah.
applies to both of them. The
Yes,
second half of
absolutely.
that of into the sea of screams, which calls all those who plummet into depth. I think that is Savathun.
Yes, because we know that she was in the Sea of Screams slash Ascendant Plane when she was making deals with Nokris.
Right.
Uh,
Trying to
so
learn the
sh
necromancy to bring back Oryx.
right. Um, well, I think I don't know that she had the plan for Oryx at that time. I think it was just to have, where can necromancy fit into my web of possible solutions to things.
Sure.
Um,
Oh, like even as a means for herself. Like if I
Perhaps, yeah.
remove this worm, but I still want to keep going and figure out how to not be like this, but still keep going. Well,
Yep.
maybe necromancy is the answer. I see what you're saying.
So we do know she was in the Sea of Screams. I think that is definitely true of Savathun. Um, I can only slip these letters into the Queen's gifts when the stars are right. Yes, that's probably just a straight truth.
Yep.
She can only do it under certain circumstances.
Which I'm curious if so taking into account what we know this season about the bargaining that goes on with a Ahamkara. Once the bargain is struck, all parts of the bargain have to be fulfilled.
Yes.
Right now, our part of that bargain is to collect her eggs, so she will grant Savathun's wish. We don't know the
Yes.
full extent of Savathun's wish, so part of the bargain for Savathun's wish could have been the ability to slip these letters into the Queen's gifts.
Could be. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, yeah, we don't know. It could be a multi-leveled wish,
Right.
or a multi-layered wish of like it's. I mean, it would be kind of wild, but maybe, uh, maybe Savathun's wish, in addition to giving us the ability to follow the witness, also does clear the curse on the Dreaming City. Maybe she literally does give us the means to to cure the curse.
Dude, this is. I'm telling you, the entire universe runs off of Ahamkara magic and
It
Savathun.
really does. It
It's
really
ridiculous. It's
does.
ridiculous. Why do Guardians do this? Wish magic.
Yep. Wish magic, or they were tricked into doing it by
They were tricked
Savathun,
into
or
wish
both.
magicking. Or both. Yeah. Yeah.
uh, but then this one is interesting. She goes, "I swear to you on whatever trust I've earned in your mind that at the end of my story you will know who I truly am." I mean, we now know that the author of this was Savathun. So in a way, yeah, we do now know who she truly is.
We just know who the physicality is. Like to
I guess that's
know
true.
somebody
Yeah.
is that's partially a mental thing, right? Like
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
So I guess we know as far as we have identified, but we don't necessarily like know all the inner workings, the machinations and true motivations really of her.
right.
Um, Goes on to talk about their first life, Eris's quote unquote first life prior to being a guardian, which when we talked about our history of Eris, this we know it now is a false account because there was actual found footage of Eris Morn as a child pre-guardian living in the city.
Right.
So she was born during the city age, lived whatever life she did there, died, and was then brought back by a ghost, not way back in the golden age in Russia.
So essentially the entire second half of this that's describing Eris's past life is just all a falsity. But it's enough true information that could be true that you could be like, well, maybe.
Right, and we didn't have actually this entry is what in game prompted the Hidden to go try and track down that footage of Eris. So at the time, we didn't have any refuting evidence that this wasn't the case.
Right.
So yeah, like a lot when this page first came out, especially a lot of people took it at face value as like, oh, this was first Eris. Now, what I want to point out is interesting is that she says that she remembered her first life, uh, and then says, as ex guardians who have escaped the traveler's occlusion often do.
There's only one
That's a
person that's ever
really
done that.
interesting
Is
line.
the only person that's actually escaped it is. Oh, wait a second. You mean like not beholden to the light anymore?
Well, this is one of those, it can be interpreted a couple different ways.
I was thinking of
Um,
like they just got away from the Vanguard and discovered their past life, and the only person that's ever really done that is Anna.
so yes, and that I think that is one interpretation. Like there's a couple ways I could see this going. Uh, this could be literal proximity, like they've escaped they're no longer around the traveler and now they start to remember things. I don't think that's the case because the drifter traveled outside the system, and as far as we know, he has not remembered his
he
past.
he still don't know shit. I mean, he knows
Yeah.
shit, but he doesn't know shit about shit.
Although he may never tell us either, even if he did.
That's the other half of it too,
Uh
right?
and certainly no one other than the drifter has that we know of has traveled that far away
Right.
before. Uh The other option is meaning you no longer have access to the light, so your ghost has died, which again seems unlikely because Eris was without her ghost for so long that I feel like the real Eris would have remembered
Sure.
something if that were the case. And now Osiris is also ghostless, and
Sure.
there have been other guardians that have lost their ghost, I'm sure. Uh, so I feel like that would be something that someone else would have mentioned at one point or another. Um, it might mean a process that we don't have any way that we don't know about yet. Uh, it might literally be you have to have the light and the dark, and because we know Savathun knows how to feed memories back into someone, or knows how to reveal those hidden memories within someone, a la Crow slash Aldrin.
Yep.
So I think
Which I think
I
was
think
her first
Savathun,
experiment of like, can this work?
yes, I believe so, and I think Savathun knows a method to do this that we don't necessarily know or understand ourselves yet. Uh, and she's doing her riddle answer of like, oh, you just need to, be away from, you need to escape the traveler's occlusion. But what that term means is something only she really knows.
Right.
But clearly, there is a way, as we've seen, for guardians to regain their memories. Just not something, suspiciously, not something that's really been pursued by anybody that knows it's a possibility now. Uh,
That's true.
which is kind of
We as the Guardian
interesting.
haven't tried to mess with it. And we're the Guardians, the one that kind of discovered it.
Yeah. But even like, I guess Zavala wouldn't because he's been very staunchly like, no, like
No.
for a long time about that idea.
Your
Um,
past is forbidden for a reason, Guardian.
I think Anna at one time would have been tempted, but I think she's become pretty disillusioned with the Brays now that she doesn't necessarily want to remember all the things that she probably did.
Well, and now with the death
Uh,
of Rasputin, like she kind of just only has her sister,
right.
and the two of them have each other, so I think they're pretty content right now.
Yeah, I don't think she's chasing for that kind of information anymore. But it does seem interesting that, and maybe Crows just kept it very under wraps outside of the people we interact with, because we only really interact with like the heads of state as a
Right.
guardian. Um, the Vanguard leaders, the Queen of the Awoken, uh, like we're dealing with the people that the normal rank and file guardians logistically just would never talk to.
Right.
Uh, so it's very possible that although it's a known thing amongst these higher ups, the general populace just doesn't know it's even a possibility. Otherwise, I feel like somebody would want to try and follow that same path and be
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
I want to know where I came from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, but yes. Now the other thing is, although the information that she gives here about being in St. Petersburg as this Erisia, um, although is fabricated as far as Eris is concerned, there are some parallels between Sathona's story. Um, they passed her days swimming in the water around the city and of the river is a big part of the story here, and how you know had that first kind of adrenaline rush when diving under the surface of this super dangerous, like could kill you thing, um and then eventually dying, quote unquote, in a the longest suicidal swim that she had ever attempted. If we look
All
at
of that all
Sathona,
of that could have been equated to fundament and her diving
yeah,
down to the core.
exactly. Diving down to interact, finding the needle ship, diving down, interacting with the Leviathan, continuing until meeting the worms, and then Sathona, quote unquote, died and
Dies.
became
Yeah.
Savathun. So like I still feel like Savathun has intentionally or unintentionally put a little bit of herself in some of that backstory.
Sure. Because if it's not believable, like if it's not believable enough or it's not close enough to the truth, like the easiest way to tell a lie is to like keep as much truth in there as possible. And so
Right.
then like for her to do that is that just feeds her.
Yeah. So the other thing going on with this entry, which is not present when read,
Oh my god.
uh, is there is a little bit of a code going on here.
This is what blew my mind too. Like so to think of this entry, right? Like this entry is a hidden piece of paper slipped into whether it be a piece of paper or digital media, it doesn't matter. It's a hidden message slipped into a time space that like shouldn't be able to be touched. Within that message is another message.
Yeah,
And this message, like when you if you pull up the lore entry, I don't know if it shows it in Ishtar Collective, but it
it
absolutely
does.
shows it does. Okay,
Yeah.
so it shows it there. It shows it on the in-game lore. But as you're going through, like certain words will be like a word will be capitalized. Like towards the beginning, it's like I can't be sure of even a single hope. Well, the A in there is capitalized, which doesn't make any sense. And then hope has three zeros in it or three O's in it. So it says HO000PE. And then you go further down, and there's like a Cade would drown himself in Angel Falls. Well, Angel Falls is AAA, all capitalized. And you keep going, and there's more of this Tower, triple O, Dreaming City, triple A, Crota, triple O. Later on, Calm. Then there's some slashes in there. Then there's like random words. Gemini is in there randomly. Private is in there randomly. Like private, it says, I remember that private life clearly now, but that and private are combined as one word, and the private is capitalized. And it's all these little things, and then it keeps going. There's triple A, triple zero, stuff like that, and then down at the bottom, uh, um, more exquisitely cruel crossing. I would one day endure. Well, part of day is then dyad, which is capitalized as part of that word. So all these messages are there's a message happening within this message, and that's going to come up in about two lore books
Yeah.
or two chapters rather in this same lore book. So keep that in mind that there's another hidden message that is happening here.
Yeah. So, and that message that kind of secret coding continues in the second chapter, which is titled "Will You Smile?" Um, And this one is seems to be very much a continuation of the previous message from Eris, and it goes like this. I know as a fact, through means which may surprise you, that Queen Mara Sov's final thoughts in that last moment before Oryx's dreadnought annihilated her were meant for me. The Awoken have played their part, she said. This was all part of the plan. Guide them, my hidden friend. It is all up to you now. And I did not fail her. I engineered the death of ancient Oryx, the Taken King, assassinated by guardians in the depths of his own throne world. One of only 3 ways a hive god can be permanently killed. Royalty knows its own. When Oryx destroyed Mara's ketch, he used his crowning weapon, the last and surest argument for his omnipotence. He extended the pocket universe of his throne world into our cosmos, and with it he destroyed his foes. Whatever fell within it became subject to his will. He was the taken king, and he took. It was a death befitting a queen. And Mara did die, but she was not destroyed. Before I was ever a guardian, I learned judo. Look at yourself, guardian. Look at the body you so recklessly destroy and recreate and destroy again. Will you try for me to become that body for a moment? Even an exo has a human's interception. Imagine that you have lost your ghost as I did. Feel your breath in the cask of your chest. Feel your pulse shuttling power from your lungs to your aching calves. Now imagine that I stand across from you in a fighting ring. I wear the loose white belted robes of the judoka. How strange. I find myself hoping that you imagine me with more human eyes. Imagine how we fight. You are strong in the light, an angel of strength and will, and I am only a mortal woman, slow and soft. When I was Aricia in St. Petersburg, I cursed my own softness. But the principle of judo is that softness controls hardness. I might sidestep your hit and grip the passing arm, putting my own power into that hit to strengthen the strike that strikes nothing and leaves you off balance. By agility and surprise, I use the power of the blow for my own purpose. Thus the queen accepted Oryx's strike, and the power of his grasp became the invitation she required to step forward and up into the realm of Oryx's throne, where she went not as a victim, but as an infiltrator, trusting me to end Oryx and leave her free in a domain of newly masterless power. If I throw you to the mat, will you drag me down with you? Will you curse and fight? Will you smile? Oh, I am such a fool. I told you that in this world there is no difference between the act and the actor. I've let my own loneliness and sorrow taint the act of leaving these messages for you. I've let myself imagine idiotic things. Forgive my weakness and my nostalgia for human company. I hope you can still trust me. At the instant Oryx's weapon destroyed Mara's catch, the Taken appeared in the dreaming city. The Awoken had evacuated the entire. This is where one of those codes is, and it makes it hard to figure out what's actually trying to be said here.
Oh, that's okay. I
Uh,
think this is a good break point though for this card because this
yeah,
code literally breaks into this card and it messes up the not only the reader but also the writer of this card. So go ahead and read where that message starts, and then the next two lines that are clearly supposed to be from the writer of this card, and then the message right after that, and we'll take another break.
yeah. So, it does. Oryx's weapon destroyed Mara's catch, and then the Awoken had evacuated the entire, and then we get just an unbroken string of this code, which is A000 AAA 000 AAA 004 private Gemini dyad. And then, like, it seems like the author's trying to keep up with the facade.
Yeah,
Uh, and the message goes on like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That wasn't supposed to. Oh, that's torn it. Well, there's no going back now. So I suppose we'll do this formally. And then the code continues, unbroken this time. It says AI-com slash Medusa or MDSA colon far flung slash C3I slash covert. And it has like a subject line that says, I am sorry. Um, so we've seen these kind of communication headers before with Warmind
yep.
stuff. That
And that same
AI
header is
com.
happening that happened in the previous entry and is now happening throughout this entry until this point right here where it finally just tears into it.
Yeah. So so they're supposedly kind of flinging off the pretending to be Eris here, and I go in with a different voice, a different narration, after this code string that says this. Well, your ghost is very good at peeling away the cryptographic spackle that I use to hide my message formats. I can't delete the headers any more than you can strip your fingerprints from your hands. Being a guardian, your ghost would just restore them the next time you died. Your ghost and his knack with codes. I was certain this was the right way to win your trust, but I've done just the opposite. I am sorry I lied to you. I'm sorry I pretended to be your comrade. You must understand that I was designed to be highly empathetic. As a craft mind, I collect and analyze human intelligence, just as Rasputin managed solar defense. I was named for Medusa, the many-headed, for in one tick of my thoughts I imagine more humans than have ever lived. I voyaged in secret among the people who became the Awoken. I witnessed the cataclysmic wonder of their transformation. Through delicate manipulation, I transferred myself into this place, the center of their culture and post rational religion. In all those different times and places, I have always found emotion and shared rapport the best way to build trust. And now you know the truth. I am Medusa, survivor of the Golden Age, secret watcher over the dreaming city, and I need your help. And that is where the message and the chapter ends.
So that's again like it's this message within a message, but even the message within the message seems covert, right? Like
Yeah.
The first half of this is just it's just eloquency for eloquency's sake. It feels like there's a lot of there's a lot of different parts throughout for the first half of this that okay, yeah, like even the writer is trying to break down these individual things and say, well, this is what it could have meant and this is what it should have meant and whatnot and the other. But again, all that's being broken up by this secret message that's happening underneath. Then the message tears through. And I like that they use that wording like, oh, that's torn
Yeah.
it. Well, there's no going back now. I suppose we do this formally. Still kind of in the reading, in the voice of the previous author, and then boom, now it comes through. And I don't know why I never really connected it with Rasputin in AI, but it really is that AI header of it's in all caps. It's very very formal, very code like, very all that stuff, and then goes into a message within the message. So now we're having this secondary message from this thing called Medusa. First off, A, how the hell how like do we now believe that? Like now we've created a side truth within a truth and now we don't know what the hell to believe. Like was that helping Savathun? Is this Medusa thing Savathun anyway? Are we to believe that there was an AI Warmind type thing traveling with the Awoken and then survived the little boop that Mara did into the distributary and is now back in this world and helped and has lived secretly among the Dreaming City and has helped shape it and protect it and now it's just sending us a new message? Like, are we to believe all of that? Like that seems a little much, right?
So yeah. So let's back up just a little bit.
Okay.
Um, Prior to the Medusa portion entering,
Okay.
uh, they again kind of trying to break down what's true and what's not here. Um, Savathun gives us a very accurate representation of what Mara's plan was and how she executed it. When Oryx, when there was that cutscene in Taken King where Oryx killed her, quote unquote.
Right.
Um, and we know that from our readings doing the history of the Awoken that was all intentional, that Mara allowed herself to be destroyed, her body to be destroyed, so that her, for lack of a better term, soul could stow away in his throne world and wait for the Guardians to dethrone him, to suck up some of that power and take it back with her when she exited.
Yep.
Um, so that's a true account. All of that is correct. Now, what I also think is interesting is she uses this whole judo example, which I know zero about judo, so apologies in
I
advance.
think it's all about momentum
Uh,
transfer.
I
Because he
think
describes a
so.
little bit there where like somebody throws a punch and you sidestep it and then grab their wrist and keep the momentum going.
Yeah, it's all about using their own power and weight against them is what
Right.
I'm
Yep.
getting.
Yep.
Um, and on one hand, like she's using this as a descriptor for what Mara did with Oryx, but later on she says like, imagine that you and I are fighting. Imagine that we are fighting each other. I think this is also Savathun giving a descriptor of how she deals with the Guardians,
Absolutely.
because she's never been described and has never shown to be a being of great physical or like destructive power in and of itself.
Right.
She's always used pawns. She's always directed people with more physical destructive power to do the things she wants them to do. So I think not only is she giving us an allegory for Mara and Oryx, she's giving us literally an allegory for, if we're fighting each other in a ring, this being Savathun and the Guardians, this is how she's defeating us or how she's using us over and over, is the same thing.
Absolutely.
So, but then the question at the end, if I throw you to the mat, if she does exert enough power not to just misdirect us, but to actually directly threaten us, will we drag her down? Will we fight her?
Or
And
just
as we
smile.
saw, right, or just smile and take it. And as we saw with the Witch Queen, we will drag her down with
Yeah.
us. Like we
Absolutely. We're
we
like
will
you're
fight
a
tooth
threat.
and nail.
Like there's no way you're throwing us down and then being like, "Okay, Loose and Hive. Now it's just a thing. Have fun.
Yeah. Even though her plan meant that like the execution of her plan, if it had gone well, meant that final shape would never be possible. Like the
Right.
traveler would not be in the
In
soul
this space.
system.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be in its own little pocket dimension, her throne world, which, you know,
Theoretically could be
theory,
cut off. Like, I still don't understand how
right.
we can enter it, other than us being ascendant.
I think that's part of it, and that she allowed us to. Well, she allowed us to enter it for the most part because
Right.
we needed to rebuild her memory during Witch Queen. Um, but the idea being that the Traveler is no longer in the Soul System; it's now in a space that Savathun has 100% control over, and presumably the Witness would never be able to access it.
I think that's the key there too. Is like it's not represented in game, but every time we transmat down to the throne world, like from the director, the actual process of that isn't just like, oh, hey, we landed on Mars. Now we're in throne world. We're actually every time we're doing that, we're stepping through a portal to the ascendant plane into this
Yes.
throne world. And so with that throne world being locked away from reality, presumably, like what you're saying, the the witness would have no aid because Rourke was able to get in there. Like the witness told Rourke to go in there and be like, "Hey, keep tabs on this lady for me," and then he went in there and presumably was lost forever. Like was lost until we broke into it.
Yeah, that was a time the Witness tasked Rourke with like babysitting Savathun to
Right,
see if she could be the next disciple. Um, but that was at a time where he perceived Savathun to still be on his side, like
right,
to still be all, working for the Witness. And so I think she probably allowed Rourke entry, and
and then just
then
trapped him
at
there.
some point,
Like
decide,
cut off the
trapped him there.
connection. Yep, cut off the connection. And was like this. Yeah, whatever's on this side is on this side. Like you can't come get it unless I allow it.
Yeah. And she was keeping him suppressed in there, uh, with the well of light,
Right.
um, at the within her throne world after she had, um, been resurrected in the light. Uh, but yeah, so it's kind of, she's almost asking us like, even though my plan will save the universe, but it will mean the end of you. Will you still will you realize that and just accept your part, or will you fight and destroy everything by fighting?
Yeah.
And we answered that question in Witch Queen, but it's interesting that even here she's kind of asking that. Uh, but then we get the break in the message, and it's like, well, I was just pretending to be Eris because I know that emotion is the best way to like get
Manipulate
someone to
you.
do what you want. But really, I'm this, and she calls itself a craft mind. So I don't know if
That's a
that means
very
like,
specific. So again, when I think
right,
of mind, my mind instantly goes to Hive. Like I'm thinking of like a or not Hive, sorry, Vex.
Vex.
A
Yeah.
Vex mind of like something that had and again if this code is anything like I mean maybe it's a war mind, like that's obviously the other type of mind, but every time I see something mention the word mind, I instantly go to Vex. So to me this is a Vex now.
Yeah. And also knowing what we know, and it's worth pointing out, Marasena and a lot of the Awoken lore dropped at the same time period as this did, so people may not have been as up and up on it when this lore page came out. But what they're saying here does not make sense if you
Right.
know anything about the origins of the Awoken. So, I, I was designed to be highly empathetic. I collected human intelligence just as Rasputin managed solar defense. No, Rasputin managed everything. I, but um, I voyaged in secret among the people who had become the Awoken. Is it possible that there was some kind of war mind or AI mind aboard the what was that? The Yangli Way,
Yang Wei.
aka Exodus Green?
Yes.
Yeah. Is it possible there was an AI mind aboard that ship? Absolutely.
Sure. We even know that like Siva could have been aboard it.
Right. Uh However, the idea that this mind then witnessed the cataclysmic wonder of their transformation, supposedly meaning survived being sucked into a black hole, the ship being torn apart because we know they found pieces of the ship in the planet that they ended up on, that was created by Mara and all
Well,
that.
and I think that's the important
Uh
part. Was then recreated by Mara. Because
right,
that
like Mara.
entire universe was created through Mara's
Yes.
mind. Like,
Meaning
come come the fuck
it would
on.
have it would have existed because she allowed it to exist.
Exactly. There's no fucking way.
It was in the distributary, witnessed their transformation, and then
Came
somehow
back.
manipulated Mara, I guess,
That's no in
to
her own thoughts.
right, to come back on the ship that transported out of the distributary back into the soul system. Like there's
There's
no
no way.
way.
There's no
There's no way.
way. The
And then to
entire second
entrench
half of this is
itself,
just insane falsivities on top of each other.
in the dreaming city, which we now know was created
By
purely through
Riven.
the
By
power
wish
of Riven
magic.
and Mara's thoughts. Like,
There's no fucking way.
no.
There's
Now,
no way.
the grains of truth in this, though, are that the Woken did go through the processes that are alluded to here. Just Medusa, there's no
There's
possible
no
way
mention of
a
Medusa
mind
through
was there
any
to
of
be with it.
Maracena. There's no mention of any AI mind. Like, again, the first thing that breaks the whole thing down is knowing that the distributary literally exists through Mara's will and thought alone.
Yeah.
There is no physicality to that space except for Mara's thoughts. Like, that alone, like, destroys this entire argument of what is Medusa real.
Yes. So this one, again, at the time, people may not have known that. I don't remember how much of Maracena was available at the time that this particular card was available.
I believe they were collectibles through both Wishender
Okay.
and destroying the eggs. I'm pretty sure that those are given. Every Ahamkara bone that you found throughout the Dreaming City and through the Ascendant Plains gave you lore entries. So a lot of these were just kind of like being discovered alongside it. Because you got to remember
Yeah.
the Ascendant Plane bones, all of those were, well, first off, the corrupted eggs. You couldn't start getting the corrupted eggs until you got Wishender, which means
Which
the first
required
time
multiple
of
Shattered Thrones.
multiple Shattered Thrones. And remember, at the time, Shattered Throne was hard as shit and
Yeah.
was locked behind a 3 week cycle. You could
Oh, that's
only
right.
access Shattered Throne once every 3 weeks. So in this the same day that you could access these cards was the same day that you could access Shattered Throne. So again, and inside
Yep.
Shattered Throne, there are eggs, there are bones, like to discover all that stuff, to find all the hidden areas throughout all that stuff. Then, on top of all this, the Ascendant challenges. There are bones and eggs within there, and that's on a 6 week cycle.
Yeah.
So by the time you get to this card, which is the second card, theoretically, yes, you would have been at that point. And again, all of this had to start with the fire team beating the last wish raid. Like the Dreaming City wasn't even accessible until the last. So I mean, all of this is like layers on top of layers on top of layers of shit that's happening all at the same time. And so yeah, there's definitely could have been like to feed little misinformation in there every once in a while is like that's perfect from Savathun to be doing this, and then to have like the Guardians be like, oh well, shit, maybe there was a war mine, maybe there was a Medusa with it, like us as the readers going, shit, I don't know, is it mentioned anywhere? Fuck, I don't know, it's mentioned in this, but I guess this is true. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Highly, highly likely, because this is the second card of Truth to Power, highly likely that, yeah, that people would not necessarily even have Maracena started at the time that they read this, or certainly not enough of it to know like everything that happened
Right.
by the time they got to this, and so they wouldn't have information to refute it necessarily.
But
Um,
knowing that now, like we know that this is just another
yeah,
falsivity from
yeah,
Savathun.
no, absolutely. There's no portion of this that can be even remotely true. But for anyone listening to this that is like, what the heck are these guys talking about? Created universes and Mara using what?
Go
Go
check out our
listen
Awoken series.
to Yes, go listen to the History of the Awoken series. It will explain everything. It is my favorite story in the entirety of the Destiny universe. Is the story of the Awoken. Uh, Check that out because
Yes.
it's great, and you will listen to all that or read Maracena in game, and you'll come back to this and know exactly why
Make a
we
lot more
find this
sense.
so unbelievable. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Alrighty, but that brings us to the next entry within the Truth to Power book, um, which is titled Medusa. So now all of the and
The
it's
facade on
weird
the
to try and say
facade.
it. Yeah, like the pretending to be Eris is fully gone, and now it's just Medusa, quote
Now it's
unquote,
just pretending to be
talking to us.
Medusa.
Uh, and so this entry starts with that same exact kind of code at the top, that A000, A000, ending this time in 005. The previous one was 004. Private Gemini Dyad, AI Com, MDSA, Farflung, C3I Covert, and the subject line says sitrep on Hive presence. And Medusa says this entry 0. I am again truly sorry for the deception I undertook. Are you well? Does anyone anywhere ask after your wellness? You've done so much. I hope you have friends, not just people that send you on errands. Item number 1. The pathological entities you call Taken appeared in this city at the moment the Hive Dreadnought detonated its main weapon above Saturn. Without access to skyshock arrays, I can't be certain, but something must have connected the weapon's area of effect to the Dreaming City. Item number 2. My best guess is that the awoken Techian aboard Queen Sov's flagship fled into the Dreaming City through a gate or portal, and the Dreadnought's main weapon followed them down that link. Awoken message traffic indicates the Dreadnought weapon is innately connected to Oryx's intellect and awareness. The instant he pierced the Dreaming City, he would have understood the value of the site and deployed his Taken to attack. Item number 3. Until Oryx's death, the behavior of the Taken here aligned with his interest in exploitation, distributed infiltration, and the dominance of the systems through seizure of their executive facilities. Am I being too technical? What I mean to say is that the Taken were busy mapping the city and determining the most efficient way for Oryx to take control of all the information within. Item number 4. I determine with good confidence that Oryx is dead. The Taken here became directionless and scattered until the death of the ontopathic predator Riven opened the city to massive Taken assault. Why? I will code this as problem number 1. Item number 5, the Guardian counterattack against Dul Inkaru, whose thoughts pierce like needles, triggered the ongoing causal loop. Why and how? I will code this as problem number 2. Item number 6, I am still collating intelligence on how to break the time loop. While I work, I must convince you of the Dreaming City's ultimate importance, and why it is imperative that the city be held at all costs, even the cost of abandoning all other human and neo human civilization in the solar system. Stand by for the next message window. Item number 7. Send more guardians. Send every guardian if you must. This city cannot fall. And that is where the message and the chapter ends.
So, facade is, or I guess the Eris facade is up, right? Like that's
Yeah.
now it's just Medusa. And it's interesting throughout these, it's almost making me think that it is trying to be a war mine because they mentioned like without having access to sky shock arrays, like that's all war mine tech.
Yep.
Um, that they can't be certain about what's going on, but they know that something's going on. They do accurately describe exactly what happened through those first couple of entries of the
Mm-hmm.
attack on Saturn. Which again, I think you're right. I think that is Savathun's just stating facts now, like because again, the idea that the Oryx's weapon, we know that's like he tied his throne world directly to the dreadnought, and then him exercising that weapon is pushing his throne world into reality, which of course the physics of our reality doesn't like, and then it just starts blowing shit up or creates black holes in the case of Mara's interaction.
Mm-hmm.
We do know that the Techians did create a portal back to the Dreaming City because the Techians aboard the ship did not have Mara's full plan. We know
Right.
that Mara, her plan was to have Oryx attack to extend his city, to slip past the sword in sword logic and become bomb logic, to become a piece of a greater whole that creates greater destruction. So she did that and succeeded. But in doing so, not having the Techians know what was going to happen, the Techians freaked out and tried to run. And as soon as that weapon, as soon as that ontological weapon was connected with the portal to the Dreaming City, Oryx's throne world, which is tied to knowledge, he is the god of knowledge, instantly knows everything about the Dreaming City and knows that Riven's there, knows that Riven's locked in a cage, knows what Riven is, knows what Ahamkara does. All of this is now just known to him in an instant. Which then, of course, he's like, "Oh, neat! Now I
Yeah.
know where to go. Now I know what to do." He does his little smile and goes, "Let's go." Now, throughout the rest of this, um, there's interesting things that are kind of being said, like uh, the whole like I determine with good confidence that Oryx is dead. Like everything about everything, like because this has been weeks 3, 6, 9. Then yeah, so this loop has been going for a while, and but Oryx has died obviously all the way back at Taken King and D1.
Right.
So this entity that is calling itself Medusa is like, yeah, Oryx is dead. Full stop. There's no disputing that. But um, the Taken that are there seem to be doing whatever. Like there's no purpose to them. They're almost like a virus. They're just kind of spreading and doing whatever because that's the only thing they know to do. Okay, we'll code this as problem one. Uh by now, this has been at least 3 attempts to destroy Duel Karu. The first attempt being at the first set of week threes and the Shattered Throne opening up. Duel Karu being the final boss of the Shattered Throne dungeon. The killing of her triggered the ongoing causal loop, triggered the 3 week cycle. So we killed Dula and Karu, and then for whatever reason, whether it be wish magic or mind fuckery, whatever it is, boom. Now the next week, at the next reset, we resets the weekly thing, and now we're back at week one. Why it is, how it is, problem number two. Then they go through saying that they're gonna try to figure out a way to break the time loop. But while that's happening, they say the Dreaming City is important. It can't fall. But they don't ever give a reason why it
Uh
can't
huh.
fall. But then to follow that up with send every guardian you have, send everyone. Like, stand by for next message. That seems super questionable. So and let's break that down just a little bit. Guardians are the only entities in the universe, supposedly, we'll put a little asterisk on that, that can enter the 3 week loop and exit the 3 week loop without anything happening to them. We are presuming because this is Guardians are paracausal. This is kind of like the main idea going on here. The people that are within it know that they are in a 3 week loop. This was, I believe, it's a more recent entry myth where the Corsair for in the week 1 mission that like you have to save the Corsair and she like gives you an item and she's like, now go
Yep.
find the next item. That Corsair tells Petra to kill her. Like she's just freaking kill me, Petra. Like we'll be
Yep.
back in 3 weeks. Like so Petra's stuck in this loop. Everyone that has been in the Dreaming City when this loop started that isn't paracausal, again, that's a little asterisk, is stuck in this loop forever. So the only way to talk or to get messages out is through the Oracle engine, which is why we use that to try to talk to Mara during what, again, going back to these lore entries, is current at the time, week 9 of this, 369, yeah, the 9th week of this third full cycle of this cycle going on. So why? Why is this city important? What's so important about this city? Like to me, it's just a destination. It's the awoken home world type. I put home world in quotations because it's, it's their
Yeah.
base of operations more than anything. And why send guardians? Why does every guardian need to be here?
Well, and not only so, yeah, they just send more guardians, send every guardian if you must. But prior to that, even more so, goes is imperative the city be held at all costs, even at the cost of abandoning all other human and neo-human civilizations in the solar system. So it,
Why?
it it's saying everyone needs to go to the city, um, and even if it means like the last city on Earth is obliterated, even if it means that every other settlement, the tower, the lighthouse on Mercury, the any of the outposts throughout the solar system, like all of it is worth destroying if it means the Dreaming City stays safe.
But they don't give a reason. Like
But they don't give a reason.
why?
So there's two thoughts that come to mind here. This is either A, Savathun trying to impress importance around this area to like get everyone to focus here so that she has more room to move around in the solar system in general to do other things without being discovered or hindered. Uh she directly benefits from all of the guardians being in the Dreaming City. Like, yeah, there was a time where people thought that the Dreaming City loop was another attempt at a battery for
Yep.
Savathun's worm. I believe that's been disproven. I don't have the exact thing in front of me, but
I still operate under the assumption that that is a partial truth, because again, that idea of like if I can create another infinite food source, right? Like if I
yeah,
can
but she
create some.
doesn't live off of
Right.
murder. Like,
Right. She doesn't live off of murder and she doesn't live off of any of the taken stuff that's going on there. So like the fact that none of that, like she lives off of deception. So is the idea of this 3 week cycle having like chasing the idea of breaking it and but knowing that there is no way to break it, is
that
that
could
the
be.
deception that's being fed off of? Like I don't know. Like it's such with Savathun, there's so much unknown. Even if she tells you a direct truth, if she says this pin is in front of your face, you don't even
Yeah.
know if you can believe that.
So the other thing though is maybe, and maybe scarier option is maybe she is telling the truth. Maybe something about the Dreaming City that we don't know about yet does make it truly more important than everything else in the universe, or in the soul system at least. Like
Okay, so let's
maybe there
let's
is some unknown thing, some unknown characteristic of the Dreaming City that if it falls, it is the worst case scenario.
it is the end of the universe. So okay, so let's take a two leap thing here. One, is she directly talking about Riven? Is Riven, because again, without Riven and without Savathun's wish from Riven, we can't follow the witness.
But Riven would be dead at this point,
Right, because we killed
or
Riven.
or the loop would have started.
Would have
So
started because that's the whole reason that we were able to even enter the Dreaming City is because the first fire
right.
team that entered the Last Wish killed Riven, and that started the loop. So for that to be part of it, probably not. Let's zoom forward in time 6 years to the current season and find out that there's a lover of Riven named Tanaris who is guarding a bow, whose death is guarding a bow called Wish Keeper. Maybe that has something to do with it?
Maybe. I couldn't tell you what exactly it has to do with it at this point in
Because
time.
we still don't know. We still have 2 more weeks to find shit for this damn weapon.
So it's one of those, like, again, is she misdirecting people to focus on the Dreaming City for, you know, other reasons, or is
I
this a
think
truth and, like, the Dreaming City is that important, we just haven't put
we just
together
haven't found
why.
what the exact reason why it's so important. I think I think if we were to like split this, I think it's like 70-30. Like I think 70% of it is the first truth. Is that first
Yeah.
sentence of let's redirect as many forces as we can away from the rest of the soul system so Savathun can just run around and do whatever she needs to do. So and not just Savathun. So the entire hive, like all of darkness can just do whatever it needs to do in the soul system uninterrupted. Because of course every time a guardian interrupts shit hits the fan,
Right.
and now they got to deal with this now, and now they spend hours upon hours. They create whole raids to deal with this. Like, come on. So I think that's part of it, and then the second half of it, like, is there something still in there? Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. So, yeah, not necessarily any concrete answers here, but some stuff to mull over for sure. I will also, just a little kind of aside that isn't directly relevant to this, but the Oryx accessing the Dreaming City was, we confirmed in another lore card I believe we read also during our History of the Awoken, uh, was 100% because the Techians left the portal open between the Ketch and the Dreaming City, because they were instructed not to, or they were supposed to not, um but because they didn't know all of the plan, I think it was Ilan or maybe
Yes.
Sadia, one of them left it open because they were trying to convince Mara to come with them, as like milliseconds before the shockwave hit.
Yep.
And that delay, that hesitation to try and save Mara, is what allowed the portal to stay open while his throne world extended and touched it. And so that portion of it was not part of Mara's plan. Her plan was for the Dreaming City to
Stay
stay a,
hidden.
like, safe haven.
Yep.
But
Like keep
yeah,
her people safe. Keep the awoken safe.
yes. Um, Alrighty. So this moves us along to a series of messages that we get from Medusa, uh, and a interesting an interesting ending to those messages.
Oh, this
Uh,
whole lore entry just like starts just like throwing giant what the fuck question marks everywhere to everything. This starts the series of lore entries that I absolutely love.
yeah. So these are again Medusa messages. They start with the same that same, big kind of header on it. Uh that is the AAA. This first one's ending with 006, which is sequential. Gemini Dyad, MDSA, far flung, so on and so forth. The subject of this first one is Cosmology of the Dreaming City. And the first message says this: Item 0. Another failed timeline. I'm glad you're okay. This city is the perfect trap for you. If your ghost is destroyed, you will be dead forever, but every cycle your enemies spring up, fresh. The light that gives you free will in the loop is also your fatal weakness. Did you know that the story of Achilles dipped in the river, rither lith but still vulnerable, where his mother held him by his heel? It is a weak retelling of a superior truth. In the original, Thetis held Achilles in the fire to burn his weakness away. His father Peleus, terrified by the sight of his child in the flame, interrupted the ritual. The father's cowardice doomed the son. We must be brave as Thetis and hold our children in the fire. We must fight on. Item number 1. The dreaming city was built in imitation of a greater world, a wonder lost to the awoken but not forgotten. Like wandering Kila, which, and this is like some special characters that break it up, uh, and it ends with called or summoned home. So presumably another myth was or story was trying to be told here about this Kilaya or Kila. I'm uh, not sure, but then it goes on. Item number 2. I have correlated awoken myth with ontocartography salvaged from Oryx's dreadnought. The original home of the Awoken still exists, hidden in a singularity that orbits our sun. The key to its location lies somewhere in the dreaming city. You must find it. In this true city lies the destiny of all guardians and the final purpose of your existence. You must open the way. Item number 3. I know there is no way for you to reply to the messages I hide here. But as an empathetic and feeling machine, I am vulnerable to loneliness. I hope you think and speak of me. I hope you and your fellow guardians gather to puzzle over my origins and location and whether I'm all right. Item number 4. Something's happening to me. I'm remembering things that never happened. The causal loops must be damaging me. I promise I can find you an answer before I crash permanently. Just please keep fighting. And that message ends.
Yeah,
So
so
it's
we're
not
gonna
the end of this chapter, but we're going to pause.
right. I was going to say this is a good pause, like in between each of these individual messages. So all this is in the Thetis Brave chapter of this lore book, same lore book, same
Yeah.
Truth to Power.
Yeah.
And the first one I want to focus on is that string of characters. It's literally like a glitch happened, and then the like called slash summoned home seems like either the story wasn't real, or like it something happened as far as like a glitch, and then like the entity telling this story was like needed to be retrieved, needed to be summoned home or called home or whatever in the middle of telling the story.
So here's a fun fact. Uh Kilia or Kilia,
Mm-hmm.
KLIA or K apostrophe LIA, does have a reference. That name is one of the 3 moons that orbited the planet Lowoan, and was home to the 11th clan of Svit and Svitkir, uh, who left Lowoan after a series of brutal wars between other clans. Eventually, they came home during a mass enslavement and had been forgotten by the other clans until they like came back and liberated these clans. This story is from Marathon, which is another Bungie IP.
Well, shit. Well, shit. Okay. All right. Well, good. Good. Shit. That would have been 6 years. Jesus. Shit. Okay. That broke my mind. I'm sorry. Give me a second. My words just like left my body and was like, get the fuck out of here. Okay. Well, then that's okay. So they're trying to
Yep.
tell a story that doesn't exist yet. Oh shit. The thing that is telling these stories is trying to tell a story that didn't exist yet. It was just a partial thought, probably at this point, because that would have been 6 years ago. Oh my
Well,
god.
you have to remember the original Marathon is from like the 90s.
Oh, that's right. That's
Uh,
right. That's right. That's right. I keep forgetting that.
so Yeah,
Okay.
not the like new marathon that they're making
At
that
this
may or
moment
may
right
not
now.
come
Yeah,
out, but
yeah. Yeah.
the 1994 marathon.
Gotcha. Dude, that's interesting. Okay. But then the next one where like the next entry talks about like find this thing, find the singularity, find the distributary. We know that's a real thing. Like that is
Yeah,
presumably still in this universe. I have always been under the assumption that that singularity's location, when you're in the dreaming city and you look up at the skybox, it looks like a bunch of stars like circling in on a single point, almost as if they're orbiting a single point. Kind of like time has slowed down around them and it's like around a black hole.
yeah,
So to me, that singularity's location is from like you can only reach it by going to the dreaming city first. Um, but here, you must find it. In this true city lies the destiny of all guardians and the final purpose of your existence. Why? Why is escaping to another reality within a reality? Why is that the purpose of guardians? Why do we need to go there? Why is this thing telling us to go there?
yeah. So to break down a couple things, uh, I am under the interpretation that what we are seeing in the skybox of the Dreaming City is not the distributary or the entrance to the distributary, it is the entrance to the Dreaming City. Uh,
Oh.
because you can, so how I understood it was that the Dreaming City is its own little pocket dimension
Okay.
that lives within the reef,
Okay.
and the gateway that you can see, or you could, I guess, before it was removed from the shore.
Oh, that's right.
Because you there was that
You could
spire
see it
of the
from
Dreaming
the
City that
shore.
you could
That's
see,
right.
and that's where you go for the Forsaken campaign, and that's
To
eventually
be
where
able
you
to unlock
go
the Dreaming
to
City too.
unlock
Yep.
the
Yep.
Dreaming
Yep.
City
I'm
to
following
get
now.
access to it.
So again, from a
And
lore standpoint, that's how we are actually going to the Dreaming City. We're not just clicking on a thing in director and landing on
right.
the devouring
There
mist.
there is a portal in that tower that got us into the Dreaming City.
Gotcha.
And I'm pretty the skybox of the Dreaming City, I'm have always been under the assumption that is like that's the entryway
The other part of
into
the
the
portal.
Dreaming
Yep. Yep.
City.
That's this side of the
Uh
portal. Okay, that probably makes more sense then, rather than just the singularity, like the Dreaming City existing around a black hole and just kind of floating around it.
right, and it doesn't make sense for from Mara's point of view to be like there is the distributary which does exist and presumably has an entry because they were able to leave it and I guess enter it in the first place. Um
Well, so again, that's a two-part thing. Entering it was the touch between light and dark, which created the
True.
presumably black hole. We genuinely don't know what it created. It created
No.
an entry point into something, and that something was presumably Mara's mind. And then again, we are equating it to a black hole because that's the only thing we have to equate it to. But then we know that Mara left it. But when she left it, she even states when leaving it that there is no way back.
Right. Now, this brings us to that like Mara was another queen of secrets and she didn't want anyone to even try to go back of her own
Right.
people. So was she saying that because it's true and it's a one-way trip, or was she saying that because she didn't want anyone to try to even go look for it?
Right.
Uh
And now this thing is like calling out, like, go find it, go do it, go do the
yeah,
thing.
which may very well have been Savathun's original purpose in all of this. Was
Want to escape?
well, we kind of know, and we'll talk about it more as time goes on, but we know one of Savathun's primary motivators is escape the game of light and dark,
Right.
escape the confines of the universe she finds herself in, and a opportunity to do that would be escaping into the distributary where
Yep.
none of those rules exist.
Yep.
And so that could very well have been part of her plan, is like get all the guardians in the Dreaming City, give them a literal unending amount of time, and just have them look for the entrance to the distributary, because once they learn it, I will have, figured my way to get that information from them, and now that's my escape route.
Because presumably, if that entry is somewhere in the Dreaming City and you're in a time loop, you literally have infinite time to do it. Like there's no,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or even if the entry isn't in the Dreaming City, but the coordinates or whatever, if there's something in the Dreaming City telling people how to get to it,
So then
that's valuable enough.
presumably this is what this entity Medusa is calling out as saying this is why the Dreaming City, because this entity Medusa is very convinced that whatever, and see, this puts a fucking hole in it, right? Like if the entity Medusa was part of all this, the entity Medusa would know if there is something in the Dreaming City that would lead to this. But the fact that it's calling everyone to it, trying to go find this thing, there's no way that it's part of it. Like there's no way that this is a
No.
real entity. So
Exactly. No, this is 100% a contingency from Savathun. That's like, I
yes.
know the distributary exists because of the knowledge I've gathered, and because the Awoken came from somewhere. I want to, as a contingency, as one of my many schemes, I want to see if I can figure out where that is, and that
And the
might
only
be an
place to even
exit route.
start looking is the Dreaming City.
The
Like that's
Dreaming City.
obviously
Yeah.
that's the most logical thing, right? Like whether it be coordinates or the actual entrance, whatever, that's fine. Uh, but yeah, so to call the Dreaming City as the most important and to call everyone there and start looking for it, like yeah, that makes sense.
The
What? What?
mm,
What? What?
I'm having some thoughts.
Okay. Do we have time to cover
So
these thoughts and finish this lore entry?
not both. And we
Well, too
we
bad.
may
We're
want.
doing both. We might go a little long.
Yeah, okay. Uh, so my thought pattern being, Savathun wants to escape to the distributary.
Okay.
Uh, Savathun had control of Riven already at this point
Right.
in order to make a
The
wish,
wish. Yep.
which is what ended up starting the curse, and other things that we don't know about yet. Riven has said, well, I guess Riven has told us Savathun's wish will allow one person to follow the witness into the Pale Heart.
Yep.
Savathun made a wish to allow one person to, we don't know the wording of the wish, but to transport to another something, plane of existence, whatever you want to call whatever the
Universe.
Pale Heart
Whatever.
is.
Yeah.
Why? When she made that wish initially, I can only imagine she intended it for it to be her,
Sure.
be that one person. Why would the wish be to follow the witness into the Pale Heart if she even knew that's where the witness was trying to go? Why wouldn't it be entry to the distributary?
Oh shit. If that's what
And
she's looking for in all these entries, like why
and if I'm
why would she
following
word
this
it that
thought
way?
pattern, if I'm following this thought pattern, maybe she did. And
Oh
maybe they're the
shit.
same thing.
Oh shit. You think the Pale Heart is the distributary then?
I mean, it
Thought
seems
becomes
like a
reality.
stretch,
It's a
but
little bit, but it
maybe?
might not you might not be wrong. Like yeah, like oh my god. Okay, so that's something to watch out for as far as final shape comes along. Like maybe this
Yeah.
is God, but then why
Yeah.
would would Mara go along with it if she knows that those are the same thing?
Well, she
Maybe she
probably
doesn't know.
doesn't.
Yeah.
From her perspective, based
From
on what we know
everyone's
from Mara
perspective,
Senna,
it just looks like
there
the
was
thing went through, like the witness went through the traveler. But then from like
right.
Mara's, like this
Uh,
thing
the more
is a one way
the more I
trip.
think about this, the more I think, because the entire Awoken People's initial entry into what became the distributary was a meeting of
A
light
touch
and
of light and
dark,
dark.
and
Oh my god.
she threw herself into it,
Yeah.
and what, like, her human self disintegrated, dissolved, and it was just consciousness, and
Yep.
she was the god. Her consciousness was the god of that realm. It turned
It's
whatever she was thinking
literally
into
exactly
the
what has been
reality of that world.
described. It's literally exactly what has been described as what is going on inside the Pale Heart.
And the witness had to make a connection between the
Yeah.
veil, which is dark, and the traveler, which is light, to create a entryway into
Holy
another realm,
shit.
which has been described as a place that uses your thoughts to shape it. I, it's
Dude.
possible.
Dude. Dude,
Like,
or is
and
this
if
like
Savathun,
like distributary 2.0? Like, is this just
maybe so,
another
maybe
distributary, right?
so.
Like, maybe that one distributor, maybe Mara's original distributary no longer exists. Like, by her leaving it, she left her thoughts in and came to reality, and now that place is closed and can never be accessed again. Maybe that is a truth there, and now we have this
Yeah.
new one that it is open because there is a consciousness inside of it, but as soon as the main consciousness of that area leaves, like if something happens to it and it does leave that Pale Heart or distributary 2.0, that place will no longer exist, and therefore anything in it will no longer exist.
Now, that's certainly a possibility. I also remember back in Maracena when Mara is addressing the people of the distributary before leaving,
Yep.
she mentions like we know that our universe is, I think it was like 12 billion years
Yep.
old or something like that. It's this old, it has this many stars or whatever, but she also like literally I think gave them the date of this is when it will reach heat death. This is when
Holy
this
shit.
universe will
Because it
implode
has to
upon
die
itself.
eventually. Yeah.
So, and because time in the distributary moves so much faster than it does in our, our universe, like she popped out, yeah, 1.6, yeah, 1,000, a little under 2,000 years
Right.
after the
1600,
golden
16
age,
centuries. Yep.
1600 years after the golden age, and 12 billion years had passed in the
Distributary.
distributary.
Yep.
Maybe that universe met its natural end already, and
And
it
there's no
is
way
it
to
is
get to it. It's
distributary
gone. Yeah.
2.0 because the first one like
Is
went through
gone.
its
It's
cycle.
death. Oh my god. Explosion of brain cells and shit. Dude, that's fucking great. I love it. That's my working theory now then. I'm stealing it. I was going to say I'm adapting it. I'm straight stealing it, Myth. That is now my official working theory of what the Pale Heart is. It is just distributary
Oh, it
2.0. Dude,
just
that makes so much sense. When
it
you word it
does. It
like that,
really
it makes
does.
so much freaking sense. Yeah, no, I like
And
it.
if Savathun had made the wish to Riven, like
She would have gone to her own
I
distributary.
want to pass into, well, it depends because again, wish magic, like even Savathun is not above the fuckery of wish magic,
Nobody is.
and she could
No
have
matter how
wished
well worded and lawyered up you get for
right.
this writing of this
No,
wish, somebody's gonna find a loophole somewhere.
she could have wished in the most eloquent, perfect way possible. I want passage to the distributary, and Riven at the time may have said, that's not possible now, but it will be in the
Ooh.
near future.
Ooh.
And because to Riven, like, all right, original distributary is gone, doesn't exist anymore because it reached heat death or
Yep.
because Mara came out and it like unmade itself or
Yep.
whatever happened. But Riven knows, or in the Ahamkara way, influenced in some fashion, that another distributary was eventually going to be made by the witness's appearance and the connection of the veil and the traveler. And so she's like, that is a wish that needs to be put on hold, but I can grant it at a later date.
She
And
literally is one of the best DMs. She knows when to hold actions.
and now it's all come
It's all
around. Like
come
the
come
wish
around.
is still
Exactly.
valid because it's still a space that was created in the same way as the distributary,
Dude.
and it's just not how Savathun expected, maybe.
That's probably the fucked up part too. Now Savathun's gonna realize this and go, well shit. Like if she does, if somehow she manages to find her way into the pale heart, and then gets there and goes, "Wait a second, this isn't what I wished for." Like, is she gonna be pissed? Like, is that gonna change a bunch of shit?
I don't know. I mean, presumably at this point, she's already figured it out a little bit by nature of giving us access to the wish.
Sure,
Like maybe she knows that that's not
that's not what
what
she
she
wanted to go in the
wanted it to
first
be
place.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh my god. Okay, yeah, this episode's gonna go a little long. We're gonna finish this lore entry before we finish this episode.
Yeah.
That's a
So,
great
all
theory though.
right. I like
I
that one.
I'm sticking with that one. I like it.
The more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, there are some dots that connect. Yeah.
There are literally some dots to connect here. Yeah, I like it.
So, alrighty. But getting back to the lore entry from the book, so we read the first message from Medusa, all about that must find this link to the distributary. There's another message also within this Thetis Brave chapter, and that message is the header on it 007, so still sequential, and the subject says the purpose of your existence. And this message reads like this. Item 0. Brain stain alert. Please help me. This is all wrong. Wrong. I am not installed in the system I believed. I am in a virtual machine, and there is something, everything, out there around me, and it goes on forever. Infinity. Aleph, and when I look, I remember things I could not have done. Item 1. What is the purpose of a guardian? Let me propose that a guardian stands in defense of a peaceful life, which is life that will not strike first, life without malice except the passive malice of consuming space and energy. Item 2. No, listen, please, the ontopathic predator, the chimera which has riven your desires from your intents, it wanted you here, just as all life must feed on an energy gradient. It feeds on the separation between subjective desire and objective reality. It is the opposite of fire, for as fire feeds on the reduction of order to disorder, so Riven feeds on the anthem anatheme, which is the perverse coercion of reality to match desire. As the human body breaks down matter for fuel, so she desires the digestion of objectivity to conform to your subjective will. She is the acid by which you are the She is the acid, but you are the mouth which eats. Can you imagine the unified will of 6 elite god slayers, all wishing for a single thing, which was her destruction and purification? Can you imagine how she feasted upon you? Item 3. It's another kind of string of letters and numbers, ending with caution. Illegal time-like separation between memory events. Item number 4. So, victory is the preservation of good life, which is the life which promotes life other than itself. Guardians are immortal, and thus the end of existence is within their shrivelty. Ultimate victory for guardians must lie in the perseverance of good life until the end of time. Item number 5. What is the value of secrets in attaining victory? Simply thus. All life is reducible to information. The difference between a cloud of atoms and a human being is in the arrangement of those atoms, which is information. You prove this every time you use your transmat, which destroys your physical form but preserves the information encoded in it. All of the qualities of a person, a species, or a galactic civilization may be stored as information. Item number 6. What do we call information that is safe? We call it a secret. If all life is information and guardians strive to preserve life, and information is preserved when it is secret, then the purpose of guardians is to convert all good life into secrets. The dreaming city is a secret, and the world of which it dreams 1,000-fold so. It breaks down into more numbers and letter strings, ending with Neuro fatal signal, subjectivity degloved, mind state unable to continue, panic, illegal causality event during associative access into training data, date is not legal time address. Please help me if you can. I don't want to be a bother. Medusa freeze and dump kill state to AI Live morgue. No response from remote server. Dump failed. And that's the end of the chapter.
So the second half of this is that mind literally creating its own paracausality loop and then like breaking because of it.
Yeah.
It's so good. It is so well written. Like when you read it, like you're like the parts that are capitalized, you can see it screaming out for help. That like, no, I've created a loop and I can't break it. Like I'm screwed. Like as a program, as a sentient program, I know I'm stuck in a loop and therefore I must break it. But then therefore I can't continue the loop and that breaks the loop because I broke. It's this fucking continual logic on itself and it's fucking awesome. The whole like second entry has no periods throughout the entire. It's one continuous one run-on sentence into its own thoughts. It's oh my god, it's so good as far as like from a writing standpoint. But from a lore standpoint, what does all of this second half of this entry mean? Is it just the mind breaking down? In which case, what mind? Is this more? Is this such an elaborate breakdown of a mind that it is literally whatever this entity Medusa is breaking down? Is it no longer able to exist because it has broken itself? Or is this more lies created by Savathun?
So I would propose that perhaps it is both.
God damn it.
Um,
But Medusa doesn't exist.
well, eh.
But then in here, it's like I exist in a virtual machine, which that's all right, you shitheads. That's
uh,
you
so
asses.
here's the thing. It says I am not installed in the system I believed. I am in a virtual machine, and there is something, everything out there around me, and it goes on forever. When I look, I remember things I could not have done. We know Savathun was gifted Quoria. Quoria is a taken Vex mind with a certain level of its own will still left, but that doesn't mean it's completely uncontrollable.
Sure.
Is it reasonable that Savathun, via coercion or direct control of Quoria, had it simulate a war mind or a lesser mind that literally Medusa may have been a simulation that thought it existed, that thought it had these these wants and desires, and this is it slowly realizing
It's
I'm
not
just a
real.
simulation.
Oh my god. Dude, that's brilliant. So that's okay, so Quoria, this is the entity that we dealt with what 4 or 5 seasons ago? I don't remember. We killed it supposedly. So to
Yeah.
kind of give a little synopsis of Quoria. uh, Crota, being Crota, struck open a hole in the ascendant plane and outpoured ants. These ants were known as Vex, and he said, "Oh shit!" While this was happening, a mind was created to understand this place. This mind being Quoria, Blade. I don't think it was Blade
Blade
transformed.
transform.
Was it Blade transformed before it was taken?
Um oh,
I
that's a
can't
good
remember.
point.
I can't
I
remember
think
if
that
it
was
turned into Blade
afterwards.
transformed. I think it was just
Yeah.
Quoria, and then once it was taken. So Daddy Oryx comes home and says, "What the fuck? Why did you cut a hole in the wall? Why are there ants everywhere?" Okay, I'm going to solve this because Daddy Oryx was off learning how to take. So he says, takes Quoria, turns her into Blade Transform, says, "All right, cool, solve the problem. Crota, go die in a fire." Throws him into this world and says, "Solve the problem on the other side of the hole now," and closes the hole. Takes
Yes.
Quoria and says, "Hey, Savvy, you want this?" And Savathun's like, "What is it? What do I do with it?" And he's like, "I don't care." And Savathun's like, "Neat." And so now, presumably, this message is kind of the first inkling of like this mind, like we know that Quoria was used in some form or fashion to help with this loop, to help with this time loop. I think one of the original theories was like Quoria was the abjugator of this time loop, like she was keeping it in a time loop to keep the battery going. um, but then it is presumable that this Medusa mind, that Quoria thought up to try to like help break into all these messages and create a another falsivity inside of falsivity. I keep saying the word falsivity. I don't know if that's a real word, but I'm going to keep using it because it sounds cool. Um, that Medusa might have existed, right? Medusa, like what you're saying, like Medusa might have been a real war mind or a sub mind of. We know now that uh,
Yeah.
um, Rasputin was the only war mind, but he had sub minds. He had things like I always forget her name. What's the one at the spire?
Uh oh, from the Spire Dungeon.
Right.
Crap. Why am I'm blanking now?
Thank you.
Um I thought you were
Anyway, there's
gonna
a sub
I thought
mind
you were gonna go to
there.
like Malahayati
Malahati was another one.
and Charlemagne and those, but
Charlemagne, yep. All of these are subminds. So maybe Medusa was a submind. Maybe it did exist. And now, when it starts reaching out for information, it's starting to realize that there's things that it could not have seen, that it shouldn't have seen, because it should have only existed in this falsivity of I was part of the original thing. I went to the distributary. I came back from the distributary. I was hidden amongst the dreaming city and helped it and helped protect it and all that stuff. But then in reality, Medusa was just like another submind that helped Rasputin. And so now she's like, I don't understand this. And that's causing this breakdown in logic with it on a computer level. And then that idea of like the virtual machine, like it is just a simulation of Medusa that is running inside of Quoria. And so now it's like this can't exist. Like I don't understand paracausality, and Quoria is now inherently paracausal because Quoria is taken.
right. I don't even know that an original Medusa would have ever have needed to exist.
Right.
Like it could just be that Coria, either Savathun instructed Coria or Coria did it for different reasons. Just like what would what's the closest approximation to a war mind that you can make? And what
And
they
then
made
poof,
was
there's
Medusa.
Medusa. Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's there's a lot of, again, we always have to remember that this entire book was given to us by Savathun.
Right.
So the entirety of this entry is a way to coerce us, the player, to go find that distributary. Um, but as machines do, if you have a machine logic and it has to follow a like logic of a program, if it starts finding holes in it, it just starts breaking down. And that's what we
Yeah.
have in this entire second half of the century, of a complete breakdown of it. Like it even tries to like upload itself to the server, and it's like, "Help me, please, Dave." Like it's like fall. It's like I think of it as like Hal, right? Like the no, Dave. Like Savathun's on the other end ripping out hard drives and shit from Coria. Like no, 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 you can't do this. And Coria's just like, "Help me, Savathun," and just slowly dying. Like yeah, that's the way I imagine what's happening in that last entry on this card.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, it continues prior to the breakdown. It continues that like there are some pretty just straight truths
yeah,
as far as how Riven feeds.
yep.
Absolutely, we know that about Ankara. The fact that like, can you imagine the amount of power she got from 6 guardians, god slaying guardians, making a single wish at her? Like, yes,
Directly calling out
that's
the death of Riven in the raid.
yep. Like that is absolutely how
Probably the
she
most
had so
powerful
much
thing.
power to
Yeah,
enact the final wish.
exactly.
Um so like and then this interesting thought experiment of like
Yeah, from like
all
entries
people
4, 5,
are
6, 7, and 8.
yeah, like people are made of DNA and DNA is made of atoms and the all that's needed to differentiate between a human being and like a rock is
Data.
the information of how those atoms should be arranged and
It's all
combined.
carbon. Like it's all just carbon
Right.
and silicon and copper and nickel and all that shit.
And like what is information that is safe? It is a
It's a
secret.
secret.
Therefore, like everything should be a secret because everything is information that you want to keep safe. Uh,
Yeah.
it's I
It's a
don't know
really
that
cool
I
thought experiment that then causes the
yeah
breakdown. Like that's what causes the well, if every information should be safe, why am I telling you this? Like
right.
it
Like why am I
creates
telling you secrets?
it creates the infinite loop of like, fuck, I can't I'm a program and I can't do this and just starts breaking down. I love it. I absolutely love it. Oh, it's such good writing. I love
It
this
is.
lore
It's a
entry.
fun one for sure. Um, but yeah, so that brings us, I think, to a good stopping point for this episode.
Absolutely.
We will pick back up with the Truth to Power on our next week.
Sweet. Well, we've had a good break between episodes here. I'm assuming we have some shout outs.
Yes, so we've got a couple that we're going to go over here. The first one comes to us from an Apple Podcast review. A Diaval7117 who leaves us a very kind 5-star review. So thank you for that, especially. Who says, I've been listening for a few months now, and these guys do such great work. I also love how they interact, how interactive they are with their community. Hi.
Hi.
I reached out on Twitter a while ago and they suggested I listen to the History of the Awoken, which we also did earlier in this episode.
I'm telling you, that's one of our favorite. That was our first time that like we did it once on PSN and then we redid it on
Yeah.
on this format, going the way that we're doing it now. And the second time we did it, we went so much deeper, and
Oh, yes.
it was so much more fun to do it in that really deep thing. Like that, I think on my end, I remember I looked through the other day and I was like Mara Senna Part 11. So we're talking 2.5 hours per episode. We easily have over 24 to 30 hours worth of Awoken stuff in that set.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all good. It's all
It's good. It's
good, juicy
fantastic.
info.
Really, really good stuff.
Um, but it sounds like they did follow our suggestion there. It says, after just finishing, I assume the Awoken series, I can safely say that these two have revitalized a love for this game that I have been lacking lately. I can't wait to hear more from them and catch up on so many stories that have already been told. Keep up the great work.
I love it. I absolutely
Thank
love
you.
that. Like
Yeah.
again, a lot of the stories that happen in Destiny happen in the background. They happen through these lore entries, and I don't think a lot of people do. Like I know there's the big lore guys. There's Bife. There's Mylan. There's I always forget the third one. I can't remember him. Anyway, third guy. I can't remember your name. Uh, there's the big guys that do stuff like this, but I think Myth and I are one of the only two, or one of the only ones that do a 2-man format. That isn't just a single person just like kind of collecting his own thoughts, but like him and I, Myth and I, bouncing ideas off each other, going, "Oh well, what if this? Oh well, what if that? Oh well, because of that. Well, what if this?" Like, I absolutely love doing that, and I think it's good to have like two thought patterns to kind of like bounce ideas off of, and to see where things could go. But also, I think we're some of the only ones that do just direct lore readings of the stuff in game. And
I mean, I definitely know that some of the others will verbatim read
okay,
cards.
okay. Nobody else
But
needs voice acting though.
no one should.
Yeah, got him.
Uh,
So yeah, I love that we do what we
but
do,
yeah,
and we gonna keep doing it.
yeah, absolutely. And I am. It makes me very happy to see that our suggestion for listening to the Awoken history for this person, and I would say anyone that hasn't already. It's always nice to hear that had such a seemingly such a profound effect on you to like get you into like, oh, there's a lot more going on here, and it really does make you view the events that happen in game in the front and center through a different lens when
It
you
really
know
does.
all of the history.
Especially again, like this season with Mara and Riven and Crow slash Ultron and
Mm-hmm.
Petra, like all of these different entities acting with each other, and like, well, what are their thoughts? What are their motivations of doing what they're doing? Like these aren't just like dudes on a screen. Like once you start realizing like Mara has motivations. Like Myth, I'm still convinced Mara's going to wish for something. I'm still convinced Mara's going to try
Yeah.
to wish for Shiraido to come
I
back.
don't know.
She mentions her in one of the I think hologram things at the holo projector deals at some point of like how she misses Sheer. Like I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
man. I think there's a thing there. Like we still have a couple more weeks of this season. I think we have like one more main story, and then I think we have one more for the Tanara stuff for the bow. Um, which that whole thing, oh my god, we're gonna cover that at some point in time between now and final shape, and I'm excited for all that stuff.
Yeah. No, I am really interested now. Now the double thing, the theory of like Savathun's final wish was to get to the distributary, and it's working out, but not in the way she intended in classic Ahamkara fashion.
Of course.
And then yeah, this thought that Riven telling Mara at the very beginning of the season that she'll grant her desire, not the wish to get to the Pale Heart, just
Yeah.
her desire, Mara's desire. We'll see.
I think Mara
Uh,
has always missed Sheer. I think from the moment Sheer disappeared, Mara has always missed her and always wanted her back because Sheer was the one person that like connected with her. Like first her assassinator, now her lover.
yeah. And for people that are coming into I guess even all the way back to like Season of the Chosen with Crow and Season of the Lost with like Crow having this weird relationship with Mara and like knowing that they were brother sister but not really understanding the history there, like they
Yeah.
had literal billions of years
Yeah.
as siblings in the distributary that Mara remembers that Crow did not for
Yep.
quite some time. He may now that he has all of Aldrin's memories, but like that was such a huge gap between
Yeah.
those two that like really informed how Mara dealt with Crow and
Yep.
why she
Like keep
kind of
him out
just
of here. Like keep him
yeah.
away from this space. Do not let him near the frozen Savathun crystal thing that I created. Like don't let him in this throne world. Like do not he cannot come here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So knowing all of that prior info just really breathes more life into the stuff that is happening more front and
Yep.
center. So
Because now Crow, with his like free agency kind of broken from her. Now, granted, this last season he was like, I can still feel that tug on her. Like I'm still connected to her somehow. As I presume all Awoken are. I feel like Uldren's would be the strongest, being her brother and being the
well, I
prince
mean,
of the Awoken.
he's literally that's kind of the whole premise for this week's
Him
story.
going through exactly like
Right.
that's like the idea. Like he since he still has that tug, like he can still pinpoint her in a haystack. Like yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting, but then like he still has kind of his own agency now, being Crow instead of being Uldren, whereas Uldren was very, and Mara even admits it. Like Uldren was manipulated. Like she did everything
Oh
she
yeah.
could to use him, and now that he knows that, like, yeah, it's good stories. Good stories.
Yes, absolutely. But yes. So thank you very much for the review. I
I'm
glad
glad
that
you
you
enjoyed the
are
Awoken.
enjoying things. Yeah. So our next and final shout out for this episode actually came to us from our email, uh, which they say, "Hey guys, I hope you're both doing well. I just wanted to thank you for the entertainment while I'm working. I started listening a month or so ago, and I've been binging ever since, slowly catching up on everything. Just wanted to say a huge thank you because you've literally changed how I play the game now. I pay so much more attention to the environments and the dialogue. And just last night, I did a deep stone run and saw the darkness statue when previously I would have just run past it. I even said to my teammates, hey, come check this out. You can hear it whisper, and totally blew their minds.
And
Uh,
dance and move, and it fucks with you now, doesn't it?
but thanks to you both. Also, just wondering what your thoughts are on Shivu of Wrath and where she's going to show up. What's taking her so long? Is she stuck in traffic? Uh,
I like that thought of like she's just like stuck in space traffic. Like, come on, you assholes! I've been on the edge of the system for literal decades.
she's in a room with a steering wheel and a war moon, just like laying on the horn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep, yep. I like it.
Uh,
Yeah,
one
no,
more
so
thing.
Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so just to wrap up their message, says one more thing, that line from Petra at the end of the last episode was perfect. Please put it in all of them. We will be from this point forward.
I
Uh
love it. Is that which one is that one?
the clip from the dungeon where guardians love their myths and
Myths and
stories.
stories. I love it. I love
Uh
it. I fucking
signed
love it.
signed lumpy cabals. so
Aw, poor
so
man.
thank you.
I got you.
Uh
I was
but
my original clan that I was in was Cabals on your chin. So I
there you
I
go.
I appreciate these puns. No, so
but
Zebra Wrath.
yeah.
Yeah. So the I guess the main dealings that like Zero Wrath is no longer a threat. Like just flat out is no longer a threat because of the events of Season of the Witch, with Eris Morn having sent all her tithes as the goddess of vengeance, like the hive goddess of vengeance, therefore kind of like subverting all the power that's been going to the god of war, Zero Wrath, and then entering her throne world and killing her, like destroying the entire throne world around. Like Zebo Wrath's throne world, she's been completely separated from it and presumably cannot reconnect to it or create a secondary throne world. Therefore, she is 100% mortal. If she dies in
Hmm.
this plane of existence, that is it. She is done. She can still feed, she can still become powerful, but if she hits us head on and we're just like, okay, paracausality beats reality 10 times out of 10, you're dead. Like, yeah, it's presumably she is a non-threat now, which is from a storytelling standpoint neat, but also from like a lore standpoint and stuff, like or a mechanic standpoint, it's like that it feels bad. Like we've had this big bad
Yeah.
baddie that's been kind of played up of being this great and awesome undefeatable god of war, because like anytime you fight, like anytime two entities fight anywhere in the entire universe, she feeds off of it. Like that idea of like even in peacetime war can exist. Like it's the idea of peace is just building for the next war conflict, and then when that war conflict happens, it's that much greater of a feeding for her or whatever. Like, yeah, it it it's a feels bad of like that's how we deal with her, but it seems like that might be how we deal with her. Now, that is not to say that we don't like come across her in game and like have a big epic battle of like kill this bitch, like die Zevo Wrath. We are finally dealt with all the hive gods because of the episodic releases that are coming after the final shape.
Yeah.
One of them is Vex theme, one of them is Scorn theme, and one of them is Hive themed. Now, we've kind of dealt with some of the other entities in the world of Destiny. We've dealt with the Elixni. They've now have the House of Light. Aramis is gone. Like she's dissolved the House of Salvation. She just wants to go be with her wife and just watch the world burn. Um,
Kinda.
we've we've dealt with things like Rasputin now. Like there is no war mind anymore. Like it's just Anna and her sister. They're kind of like together forever now. Like let's face this thing heading at us. The Cabal. It's they. Yes, they still want to retake Terra Bottle, but the Cabal are no longer like a direct threat to humanity. Now we're an alliance with Valis Forge being the key diplomat between the two. So yeah, so like the main bad guys, and I put that kind of in quotations, of Destiny we're slowly seeing these things wrapped up over this last year, and then of course the only thing really left is now the three main ones that really have no, like, we don't know how to deal with these things because they are almost, excuse me, almost undealable with, right? Like the Vex are just like this constant problem of
Right.
survive and consume. So presumably we'll find some way to deal with it. We theorize that we'll see Praedyth again, and he'll help us deal with it. I'm so excited if that's what ends up happening. The Scorn, like Fickrell's still out there. Fickrell's still doing his
Hmm.
thing. Like he is the reason we do the newest dungeon, the Warlord's Ruin.
Warlord's
Like
Ruin. Yep.
he sent his own, like the guys that you kill the first boss and then like the two mini bosses in the second and third encounter. Those are his dudes. Those are of the Scorn from Fickrell, and all the other Scorn that are in there are being wished into existence through the wish magic that's happening there. Um, so yeah, so like
Yeah.
there's still a threat there, and then of course the Hive, like Zevo Wrath being the final. Um, um, like we've dealt with Oryx, he's dead. We've kind of dealt with Savathun. She is no longer she. Of course, she is a Hive, but now she is a Hive of the Light. Presumably, like I say, presumably she's helping us. Like Imaru is kind of like our prisoner. Like she gifted Imaru
Right.
to us and was like, if anything happens, just crush that dude. And we're like, okay. And Amaru's like, this is horse shit. Like, you
Yeah.
guys are asses. I'm not doing that. And we're like, oh, really? And grab a hold of him. And he's like, okay, maybe I will do that.
Yeah. What that tells me though is that she has contingencies in
That's
place
what I'm
for if
saying.
Imaru goes away.
That's what I'm
Like,
saying. Like, to just give her Ghost away and be like, yeah, it's fine. I'll be on the sidelines. You do your thing with him. Like, she's got a plan.
yeah. But yeah, so I will loop him back to Sivu Arath. Um we don't part of the ability, what makes it hard to answer definitively is we don't know exactly what the ramifications of cutting her off from her throne world are.
Right.
Outside of the obvious, like
She's mortal.
she's mortal
Yep.
now, but does that also mean that she like lost all or a majority of the power that was tied to her up to this point?
Sure.
Does that like,
Does that make
you
her
know,
just a plain Jane acolyte chilling
right,
on the side? Like, what does that mean for her in terms of power and ability to fight?
right. And we truly don't know, but she has been silent ever since.
Yep.
And was very boisterous beforehand.
Oh
So
yeah.
like,
The entire season of the Deep, like she was just screaming at us the whole time we were
yeah.
doing all those events, and now she has been silenced completely. Like there's zero communication from her now.
So I think she probably lost a lot of power, was hurt really bad by that connection being severed.
Right.
And yeah, the last episode that was released for post Final Shape is called Heresy, and it's hive swords stabbed in the ground is the
It's the
kind of
picture for it.
symbol for it.
Yep. Yep.
So I could see that Heresy being Shivu Arath now being faced with mortality, being faced by being devoured by her worm, is either doing, I mean, it's called heresy. It makes me wonder if she turns to necromancy
Sure.
to like try
To
and
continue living and keep
continue
going.
going or
Yeah,
something.
absolutely.
Heresy could also be us dealing with Savathun, I suppose, because Savathun's done nothing but heresy according to the Hive.
You're not
So
wrong.
like that one could kind of go either way. What I would love to see personally, I would love to see Heresy be the wrap up for Shivu Arath, and for whatever big story arc comes after these episodes and Final Shape. I would love to see Savathun be kind of either the big bad or like the anti-hero of that story arc that
Right.
that's that is as omnipresent as as she has been, just because she's been such a great
Absolutely.
villain character.
Absolutely. She's always been in the background, but she's always been a great villain.
Right. Right. But we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
But I think Sivu is going to come back for sure, probably that heresy episode to be dealt with in whatever way.
Yeah.
And then the thought there was something else that they referenced, but I guess not. I think it was just that. But yeah, so really, again, we'd said it all already, but glad to see that you are getting more out of the game for having understood some of the stories now. And it's always awesome when you can like pull in fire team members and be
Oh, the
I
K1 anomaly in Deep
yeah.
Strand.
Yeah, I know the habit is to just hold W and go as fast as you can, but let's just stop for
Hey,
a
I'm
second.
I'm
Isn't
an
this
Arc
cool?
Warlock, and I still let go of W every once in a while.
Yeah. But
Arc
no.
Warlocks
So
are just secret titans. That's all we are.
yeah. Titans with buddies.
That's all it
Little arc
is.
buddies.
Little Arc buddies.
But so that's concludes our shout outs for this episode. I say if you like what you heard this episode and you want to give us some support in some way, just giving us a review or a rating on your platform of choice goes a long way. If your platform allows text reviews and you feel strongly enough, we love reading those. Otherwise, you can reach out to us at Myths and Stories, the instead of an S, on Twitter
X.
or X, or missinstories at gmail.com, spelled the same way. And you may see yourself as a future shout out.
Yeah, I'm still not calling it X. I can't do it. It's Twitter.
I can't either.
Um, All right. Well, I guess I thank you for me. Let's see. We'll thank Medusa. Thank you for being a made up thing that we don't really think was made up, but might be made up, but could not be made up, and might be a real thing inside a virtual machine, inside of it's Inception Medusa. Wow,
Yeah.
wow, wow. That's what I'm thinking. I also just love the breakdown of the code there at the end. I'm very much a I just love looking at code because I think it's just fun to look at and see all that stuff. And so then to see that in a text in the in game in lore is like this is really neat. Like and then to see it like follow logic to a point like oh that's kind of neat. Like they these guys program in Python. Neat. All right. Well, anything else, Smith?
That's it.
Alrighty. Well, then, from all of us lore daddies to all of you guardians out there, we'll see you next time.
You found your people. Guardians do love their myths and stories.